Jonah.
How you doing?
You're looking great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is this your home that I'm talking to you in? Is this your private man cave?
This is my bedroom. This is which is depending on the amount of farts, can become quite the man cave.
Nice.
Yes, and I'm talking about the farts for my wife.
Of course, I assumed.
Yes. Yeah, I just me and Deanna, we just got a new kitty, and so the office I would normally do this in would be full of mews.
I understand.
Can't do that. But I really was expecting you to have all of your awards behind you in this video. It seems like something you would do.
Let's see what. Oh, you mean those?
With a dolly shot? So this is for Spin Magazine, and it was in 1985. It was in 1985 when you, Weird Al Yankovic, that was like your first big story in Spin Magazine, was this interview. Do you remember anything about it? Did it feel like a big deal at the time? Or
I vaguely remember it was a big deal. I don't think I was 100% happy with that article. It was just. Have you read that article? It was just.
Yes, I was actually going to say it. It's the guy seems. I don't know what he was going for, but he seems kind of like a dick.
I don't want to say that, but he kind of went into it trying to write it with a weird kind of skew. Like I remember he has some kind of thing about how I would walk into places and like expect to be noticed, and I don't know. That's not me.
There was there was a lot of projection on that.
Yeah.
And so he took you to a place, what was it called? Mateo's?
Okay.
It was like in the article, like he meets up with you and he takes you to like this fancy place, Mateo's, I guess, in Hollywood, and on a Sunday, which was the night that like Sinatra goes there. And he talks about how like nobody cared about who you were, which I feel is like a weird thing to set up for an article.
Yeah. The whole article, from what I remember, was just not great. I'm assuming that this interview with you is just going to like completely make up for that, 30 years later.
Yeah, that's the plan. But yeah, so were you nervous, like, because it's like, it was a big new rock mag, and it must have felt like some kind of a validation from like the mainstream rock world or music world. And then, this guy takes you to a fancy place. And then in the article, it says on the way home, you stop by one of your favorite places on La Cienega, and then you get noticed there by girls. Is there any truth to that part of the article?
I have no idea, man. It was like, 35 years ago, so
yeah.
I really don't know.
Because also, it's another thing that it doesn't seem like something you would do.
Well, not on purpose, no. I mean, you know me well enough to know that I don't crave constant attention.
Yeah, well, that's that must have like felt kind of weird, because it's like, you don't crave constant attention, so, and you kind of craft it when you get it. You set up a situation. I remember when we were going to have you on the Meltdown TV show, you're like, I'm down for doing something, but you kind of had these ground rules. Like, it's like, I'm not going to come and just kind of riff around, or I want to make sure I know what the bit is and what I'm doing.
Well, that's because I'm just not great at improv, or I'm not a classically trained improv guy. I feel more comfortable just kind of knowing what the plan is. So that was what that was about.
Yeah, well, but there's also like, it's I think in the article they talk about how you guys came up with, I think, Eat It, and it was you and Jay Levy, your manager, and a producer, and you guys.
The video you're talking about.
Oh, was it the video that you guys? It's because in the article you talked about how you guys
the song was just me and Michael Jackson. We just co-wrote that together. But no, the video. Yeah, I think the video was sort of like the brainchild of myself and Jay, who was my manager, and Robert K. Weiss, who we were working with back then, who produced the Blues Brothers and Kentucky Fried Movie, and one other person who I'm blanking on. But yeah, it was like the four of us sitting around, like, wouldn't it be funny if kind of stuff, and just kind of brainstorming ideas.
Yeah, because like when you're hanging out, you are good at like riffing and adding, jokes to the conversation.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I try.
But like, what did like to like the effect of you, kind of not craving attention all the time, but cultivating the situation when you do get the attention, when you want someone to pay attention to something you're doing. Did that feel weird, like when that article came out, and just the idea, like you're like you kind of, it felt like it was going to be a big deal, and then it was just kind of this weird take on who you were.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 1-2 punch of like, oh boy, I'm in a big national rock magazine, and then reading the article and going like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't, again, it left a bit of a bad taste on my mouth, because I don't think they really, the writer really got who I was, or certainly is, like you said, he had his own projections, which kind of like skewed the whole feeling of the article.
And even though like the name Weird Al just comes from your radio station name, like when you were doing college radio, when you started releasing music, was there something to the feeling that's like you had to live up to a certain character that you projected when you met people? I mean, Steve Martin talks a lot about having this like thing where like he got so inundated with people wanting him to be the wild and crazy guy that he actually kind of retreated and became a lot more shy because of that.
I've always been a shy person at heart. I mean, that's sort of like my natural state of being. But I think particularly in the 80s, I do feel like I was probably on a lot more. Like I felt, on camera, I was a bit more wacky probably than I needed to be, just because I felt like I had this persona and I had to kind of live up to that. But that's exhausting, and that's not really the way I am. And I think over the years, I've kind of become more comfortable in my own skin, and I can just kind of, be who I am and kind of turn it on when the occasion calls for it.
Yeah, and then it's and to kind of be so young when you become so successful off of this this persona and this look, like like you said, you were kind of like when in the 80s, you were just like, I had to be what people were wanting, and that's kind of what was like getting people to pay attention and buy your records and check out the shows. And was there, as you got older, and it's almost like it was like an interesting kind of like reverse Beatles, where like you showed up one time and you didn't have a mustache. Like it's like you didn't have glasses, where it was almost like the opposite. For like the Beatles showed up once, there's that John Mulaney bit where it's like the cast of Friends all of a sudden has mustaches. Like but you like with I think Running with Scissors, there was that change. Was that like a conscious effort to kind of break away from the character you created for yourself in your early 20s?
It was. My whole plan was to sort of do a Benjamin Button thing, but with the Beatles. So just kind of like slowly reverse, and I'm going to like spend my last days like playing clubs in Liverpool.
Yeah. But it's like I remember seeing that, and that like I remember my dad, who always was trying to get me to get LASIK because I had glasses, and he was just like, he's like, you like Weird Al? Weird Al got LASIK. There's nothing wrong with it. But I found myself just a few years ago getting LASIK, and just almost because when I started doing comedy, like I felt like I kind of solidified an idea of who I was when I was 20 years old. And then, as I got into my 30s, I was like, this is feeling like I'm trapped by my own idea.
Yeah. My wife brings up the example of Rose Marie from the Dick Van Dyke Show. She wore a bow in her hair for like 150 years. It became like her thing. Like she couldn't appear anywhere in public without it. And she kept telling me whatever, if I felt like any kind of like connection to whatever it was, Hawaiian shirts or glasses or whatever, like, don't let that be your bow. Like you're more than that. Don't like have, such an attachment to something that you can't be anywhere without that thing.
Yeah, was it like kind of the it was the advice of a good woman that
yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that made you're like, yeah, I still make funny like rock songs. I don't need like, you don't need to have the costume as well.
Yeah, people get freaked out about my facial hair. I'll see people tweeting like, Al was funnier when he had the mustache, and then like I'll grow facial hair and like, oh well, how come he's got facial hair? And nobody's happy. It's like everybody's got their own specific, opinion of the way you should be.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's like a kind of a solidified version. And I remember you talking about that once on Twitter, like or Instagram. People were just, when they dress up as if they do a Weird Al costume, it's like it's the '80s Weird Al.
Yeah, like 98% of the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was the iconic look. I mean, I was that way until the mid '90s. So that was sort of the look, and several people were trying to talk me out of like changing my look, because I had the LASIK surgery, and I kind of felt like, well, I don't need to wear glasses. I don't want to have to keep wearing the glasses. Even Emo Phillips took me aside, and he was like, Groucho always had the mustache. Like there are some certain iconic things with people that people get upset if you mess with it, and I just felt like I didn't want to like spend the rest of my life wearing fake glasses or not being able to shave off my mustache or change my hair or whatever. The quote that I used a lot back then was, Madonna changes her look every 15 minutes. Why can't I change my look once every couple decades?
Yeah. I always think about this because you've always seemed almost like an island unto yourself when it came to like you are very singular in your output comedically and artistically, but did you ever feel like as you started doing stuff like were you ever a part of a scene or an artist community, or were you like did you know other people that were like, hey, yeah, I kind of make I'm talking like in the early days, like it's like, oh, I also make funny songs.
That's the whole Dr. Demento community. I mean, that's how I came up, and I definitely felt camaraderie with the people at the time, like Barnes and Barnes, like Bill Mooney, who was half of Barnes and Barnes, introduced me to my wife. I mean, I was part of that community, and now in a larger sense, I feel I'm part of the same community as, Flight of the Conchords and Tenacious D and Garfunkel and Oates and, Randy Rainbow and like all these other people. So I do feel like everybody that does comedy music is part of a community.
And in the early days of when, everyone's like sending tapes to Dr. Mento and then everyone kind of starts to, were there meetups? Were there any times like in LA where it's like, like you and Barnes would go like, to like Mel's and hang out and other people would show up?
Well, we would Dr. Demento did a show live at KMET every Sunday night, and I didn't go every single week, but every now and then I'd get invited to come down and answer phones and make funny noises and do the noise makers. It's funny 5 time, it's top 10 time, and and there I would hang out with all those people, and that we all were good friends with each other, and sometimes we'd hang out outside of the show. I recorded a few things with Bill Mooney at his home for some Barnes and Barnes tracks. So I mean that was it was like a little club that we're all in.
Yeah, and like when you were living in Los Angeles, well, I mean you grew up in Los Angeles, but like when you moved to, and I think we talked about like how you used to drive up to basically from Linwood, like to go to record stores or go record shopping.
Yeah.
But when you finally moved to the like Hollywood, LA kind of proper area, did you go to like other shows and concerts with those friends too? Like were you also a part of the larger kind of artistic community in Los Angeles, like with art shows and going to see bands at certain clubs and stuff like that?
I mean, I would certainly go to shows and see bands at clubs. I didn't really consider myself like necessarily part of like the Los Angeles music community so much because it was such an outre thing that I did. I mean, I felt a lot closer to the Demento crowd, but I was certainly interested in the LA club scene and the music scene at that time, and I tried to expose myself to as much of it as I could.
And do you remember any kind of crazy bands or shows you saw like during that time, and and what were the clubs you were going to?
Oh, just everything on the Sunset Strip. I remember seeing the Go-Go's, was it at the Roxy or the Whiskey? I forget where I saw X. I saw the bands that were, big in the early '80s. I think I had a date with Terry Nunn from Berlin, and we went to see Frank Zappa. That was fun.
That's such an '80s Los Angeles sentence that I've ever heard. That's incredible. Yeah, it's just I've always, just from being out here for so long myself and just kind of like going, and like knowing people in bands and knowing people and going and seeing people at shows, you kind of get to know people just from around.
Yeah.
And that's why I was always kind of like, wondering if like what kind of wild shows you saw.
Yeah, I mean, mostly stuff like that. I mean, I didn't go out a lot, but if one of my favorite bands was coming to Oingo Boingo, I've seen a few times. I would try to expose myself to that, and I wasn't I haven't seen that many like stadium shows. I don't love the huge shows, but if one of my favorite bands was playing in a smaller venue, I would make every effort to go see that.
And as you started getting more known and more recognizable, how did it feel going into like shows where you're going to see just the band you like, and people are like, "Oh, you're gonna do or it's like, did that clash with your shyness at that time?
You just get used to it. I mean, it comes with the territory. So I still like being out in public. Well, not these days, I can't, but of course. But back in the day, in the before times.
Oh, the before times.
Yeah, no, I would enjoy going out and seeing shows, and I would occasionally get recognized, and sometimes between bands I would have to spend half an hour signing autographs and doing selfies or whatever. But I don't mind that. I think it's fun, and people are respectful and nice. So that's fine with me.
Yeah. Like when you're in that scene with like the Demento scene, you're probably you are the biggest success story to come out of that comedy music like community. Do you think because you got like a big record deal right when you signed, right? It was 10, right?
Right, which and that I have to say that was sort of a joke in the sense that nobody thought I was going to have 10 albums. I mean, that was just one of those kind of draconian things where it's like, on the extremely off chance that I was a huge success, they've got me for 10 albums. It was more about control and ownership than it was like, oh, this guy's going to have a super long career, And the ironic thing was not only did I fulfill that, but they extended the contract twice. So I wound up having a total of 14 albums over a period of 32 years. So after only 32 short years, I fulfilled my record contract.
And that was it was originally rock and roll, but then rock and roll was a part of Capitol.
No, Capitol had nothing to do with it. Capitol was just one. That was just one single. That was just My Bologna. That was one and done with Capitol.
Okay.
And then in 1982, I signed with Rock and Roll, which was a subsidiary of Scotti Brothers. So I was basically signed to Scotti Brothers, They were distributed through I think Epic at one point and CBS. I think Warner Brothers. They had several different distributors over the course of my relationship with them, and then I think I was sold like a piece of meat to some other record label. I know I got passed around a bit.
Yeah. So with that though, like it's things. I'm not gonna say like it was instant because you were like making stuff and sending it into Dr. Demento. Like he didn't play it. Sometimes he would, and like it was just kind of. And you're doing this while you're like working on just life stuff,
right?
Going to school and
working in the mailroom, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just kind of a hobby that you have in the back of your head. Like it's like, I mean, it'd be cool to just keep on doing this stuff, but
right?
That's just what. And then that's like I think. Do you ever feel that if it never took off, if you didn't like kind of really just kind of blow up in the way you did? At any point in your career, I think, do you think you would have just kind of kept on making stuff and kind of, because you seem to have a true artist motivation and mentality?
It's hard to say. I mean, I started to think what would have happened if things didn't work out for me, because I got my degree in architecture, which I proceeded to not use at all. And I was hoping obviously for a record deal, but I mean, if that hadn't happened, I really don't know how I would have wound up. I mean, I'd like to think that I'd continue to be creative in some aspect, but that's the whole direction, thankfully, not taken.
Yeah, and I sometimes think like it's even say you gain some success. Say like I think Polka Party was it underperformed compared to
Right.
the first three records,
Right.
which is so is your fourth record, and like was there a time like or was there any at that time was there anything in you kind of going like, well, that was an insanely great run. I think if I kind of maybe go independent or just kind of like I don't know what was the thought process of like what did you ever have that in your career like you're like okay that was a good run like what do I do now? Would you kind of like bring it in because you kind of kept on getting bigger with the scope of your performing and your songs and stuff like that, but like would you have stayed small?
Hard to say. I mean, I definitely had the thought that my career very well might be over soon because I thought that most careers have a bell curve. Like I started out and I kind of peaked, and now you Polka Party, I'm on my way down, and pretty soon I'll be obscure and forgotten. And I just kind of thought, well, yeah, it was a great ride. I had a fun time, and I didn't really have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. Like, what am I going to do now? Or like, I didn't give a whole lot of thought to my future. Just kind of like writing it out and trying to see what happened. But there was definitely that sense that this could be it. And I've learned since that, I mean, my career in particular has had a lot of hills and valleys. Every album that I put out, people call comeback. So I just try to roll with it. And I still don't have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I don't know what I'll be doing, but I still love being Weird Al, doing what I do, and I'd like to keep on doing it until people are completely sick of me. So we'll see what happens.
And what do you? That's a very kind of Buddhist, be here now mindset. Like in your approach to your career, is that kind of your approach to just kind of life? Like the now, work on the nowness of the moment.
Yeah, my wife and I like to use a Neil deGrasse Tyson example to be the climate, not the weather. It's you don't want to focus on your life going like this. You want to kind of keep an even keel and like don't get so full of yourself when people are singing your praises and hyping you, and don't get too depressed if people are saying you're a hack and being detractors. You have to kind of like find a middle ground and be happy with that.
Yeah, there's a kind of a serenity to you from the first time we worked together years ago on a sketch on Web Soup and the times we've done. It's like there is such a you're very present in like every moment that I've ever like seen you in, like in any situation. You're very like right there, especially like I would say like in the VIP kind of meet and greets after your shows. There's a very concerted effort to, and it's almost like politician-y, but not fake. You know what I mean? Like that when you see someone, you're like really kind of give them that moment because you're not really thinking about the person before or the person after.
Well, I've certainly been on the other side of that, and I know what it means to meet somebody that you're a fan of. And sometimes it's exhausting, but you figure no matter how many people you're meeting, each person has that 10 or 15 seconds or however long it is with you. And, that experience is going to stay with them. And that very well might inform their opinion of you for their entire life. So even if I'm tired or not feeling great or whatever, I try to put in a little extra effort into making sure that it's a pleasant experience for whoever I'm interacting with.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this once before, but we were both on the way back from Pensacon, like right before everything shut down. And I remember it was a long weekend. You were exhausted. Everyone was starting to get really on edge about what was happening with the pandemic. Like kind of everything was starting to really come down, and you were exhausted. We were all exhausted, but like it's like you came in and some guys like, hey man, can I? And you're just. It was immediately you're like, of course. And there was no like sure man. It wasn't that sure man is very different from of course. Sure man is like, I want you to know that I thought about it for a
This
second.
is a huge imposition on me, just so you know.
And it's you're not able to, not that anybody is, tour or play shows right now.
Right.
But you have two things that you've kind of done that I think are really, really cool. And this is coming out, I think, along with another thing you're just putting out. But you did the debate song with the Gregory Brothers, which
Yes.
was insanely quickly put out.
Yeah.
What was the process of doing that? Was that like, it's like you guys, I know you guys were prepping for it, but then like, did you have like a melody ready for the edit to be put together?
Yeah, it's sort of a magic trick what they do, and I hate to pull back the curtain and tell how they did it, because it does feel miraculous when it comes together. Because I mean, that was online and on the New York Times, like I think 20 hours after the debate ended. I mean, it was unreal. And also, I really need to give, people are giving me way more credit for that than they probably should, because I mean, that was the Gregory Brothers thing, and they're just nice enough to allow me to be part of it. I actually did my parts like 2 or 3 days before the debate even happened, because we knew pretty much what the questions were going to be. I mean, we knew what the topics were. We didn't know it was going to go so off the rails, but that was a pretty good chance. So we shot that all a couple days in advance, and then the Gregory Brothers basically stayed up all night long editing bits of the debate into that. I basically, as soon as the debate was over, I just texted them saying, "That was a train wreck. Good luck. Have fun." And then I actually had to sleep that night, and they did not. They just cranked it through.
Oh, wow.
And I just want to say, I mean, the plan was to keep it as nonpartisan as possible, because I don't like to stick my foot in political waters to begin with, publicly at least. And I never like to get people mad at me. So everybody online that's like, that's so one-sided that you're definitely in the tank for whoever. That wasn't me. I mean, that the questions were nonpartisan, and the candidates said what they said, and the Gregory Brothers edited them, in a way that they thought was funny. So I kind of washed my hands of that. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I thought things are a really great piece, and I'm really grateful to the Gregory Brothers for, again, having me along for the ride.
Yeah, it was very funny. And I was going to say, it's much like your, outwardly, it's like it was apolitical. And that's it's I'm very much the same way, where it's like I don't want anyone to like hate me for something like but it's also that comes from my neediness of wanting to be liked.
I like to think of us as cowardly.
Yes. Please, we are essentially Jeb Bushes. Just please clap. But there with that though, because it's like it's very apolitical, and it's very just talking about the how crazy the whole thing is. With The Rock and Surfer Magazine, all these people that have never really spoken up. But with this new thing that's coming out today, or right now, the song you did with Portugal the Man.
Right. So this is ostensibly airing on the 13th, I guess, we think.
That's what I was told.
And the single came out on the 12th, so it's been out for a day. Already the #1 song in the country. I'm very excited about that. Thank you so much for your support, everybody. That really means a lot to me. Thank you.
It is crazy that they moved up the Grammys just to give you all of them. I mean, I know it's unprecedented, but hey, 2020, am I right?
You know what's funny was like I made the same joke when a Mandatory Fun came out, my last album. I was on Comedy Bang Bang and joking with Scott Ackerman, because we taped that in advance as well, and it's like, can you believe it's the #1 album in the country? And the odd thing was, when it came out, that when the podcast came out, it was the #1 album in the country, and everybody was like, how come you guys are laughing about that? What was the joke there?
I like that.
But it's my lucky charm. I'll always joke about it being #1, because it might come true.
Can you say this is the #1 spin interview with you in the country? Can you just say that
Absolutely.
about this? Okay, great. Yeah, that is essentially, and I know you've collaborated with other people before in music. Like you did backing vocals for Ben Folds, I believe, on songs for Silverman.
Yes, right.
Yes, and so you're clearly like you've been in music this whole time. You're an accomplished musician and singer, but you yourself, like as far as I could tell, like this is you have like a full verse, and this is a very serious song and with a very serious topic.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different kind of direction. I want to make it clear that I'm not going serious, but this was just something fun that I was very excited to do. I love the guys in Portugal the Man, and they're one of my favorite bands, and I was thrilled to do it. Yeah, I sing the second verse and then vocals throughout the entire song. I'm in the video. I'm very glad they allowed me to be a part of that, and I recorded that in the thick of the lockdown. I mean, I forget when exactly, but I recorded it at home. Well, both that and the Gregory Brothers, I recorded my tracks at home. I mean, I'm literally on my laptop with a microphone downstairs, and it sounds pretty good. It's pretty darn good. I mean, it got me thinking, why am I spending thousands of dollars a day in a recording studio? I'll just record it downstairs in my robe with a phone, microphone.
Yeah. Well, it's a very it's talking about indigenous First Nations rights, and that's it's nothing that should be political, but it kind of has become so with Dakota Pipeline and stuff like that, and it was really really cool to see you be. I know for you it's like you like the band, you're friends with the band, and it's a great song, it's a beautiful song. But to just kind of see you, be a part of that project was really, really great.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I try to stay non-political, but there's some things that are beyond political. Like, I don't think there are many people saying indigenous people shouldn't have rights. No. I mean,
yeah.
I'm okay offending those people.
Yeah. There's no one saying it, but they have a dog whistle that sounds like it.
You're right.
But the guy, the CEO from Spotify, kind of slags on albums, basically saying like it's like older musicians they're not adapting, and that's kind of you needed, like for your career to work, like you needed like a good amount of like time for like hits to kind of sustain and stay big.
Right.
And I know this is probably a question you've gotten since things have started speeding up, but now that you don't really necessarily have a record contract, you don't have to put out albums anymore. You're appearing on other people's songs. You just talked about how you could just make songs downstairs, like on your laptop. Is there maybe going to be? Are you still going to make an album? Are you still making albums? Do you like that, or are you going to try and move on to just like, when I feel it, I'm gonna like make a single?
I try to never say never, but I don't think I'm going to be doing any more conventional albums. I think Mandatory Fun is probably my last one. I'm not retired. I've read a few things online like, oh yeah, Al's not making music anymore, and that's clearly not the case. But I like the idea of just being able to spontaneously do stuff when I feel like it, like the Gregory Brothers thing or the Portugal the Man thing. Stuff comes up, and now that I'm not under contract, I don't need to get permission from anybody. Because in the old days, there'd have to be a contract written up, like Al's the property of this record label, and to do business with your record label, becomes a whole thing. So I certainly have the option to be more free and to put out stuff whenever I like. Now, having said that, I haven't been extremely prolific in the last 6 years. I've had the occasional single and the occasional project, and I haven't been putting out stuff right and left. Part of it's just me being lazy, and part of it's me just not being inspired enough. And that's part of what comes with the freedom of not being under contract and not having to do something or put something out. So I'm living my life and having fun, and I'm putting out stuff when it makes sense and when I feel like it.
Yeah, and this is also like, I think a good time for you to be less busy because you have a family, you have a daughter that's like you've gotten to spend more time with her like, in these years because you haven't been kind of working like crazy.
Yeah, and that's not. I mean, especially this year in particular, I spent a lot of time,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, it's a bummer for my daughter because she's a senior in high school now, and this is the year that we're going to be traveling all over the country and visiting colleges, and I'm sure she'd love to be living a normal life right now. I don't mind the lockdown quite so much because I don't, as long as I've got like high speed internet and Netflix, I'm cool,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
good to go. But I mean, I'm sure she'd rather be living the life of a normal, teenager right now.
Yeah. When you wanted to play music when you were young, right? That was that like the thing that like in the dream when you were like in growing up?
Well, that was the fantasy. I mean,
Fantasy.
I certainly never, even as a kid, I was, rational enough to think like that's never going to happen, because it's such a long shot. I mean, I always thought that I'd grow up and have a real job at some point. And, I had my fantasies like most other kids with the hairbrush in the bathroom mirror, singing along to some stupid song and thinking, imagining myself on stage. But I never really thought that was going to happen. So my whole life has been just like this extended adolescent pipe dream come to life.
And when things like when this like pipe dream starts kind of coming to life, and you start to get attention, you're putting out the records, you're making videos, people are paying attention, people are enjoying you. At what point do you start to go, well, what else did I want to do as a kid, and I'm going to try and do that too? Because it's like I'm very similar where it's like I liked it all. It's like I wanted to be and I wanted to play music. When I was a kid, I wanted to act and do comedy, and I wanted to do all that stuff. And it's a funny thing where sometimes people like want to like compartmentalize you, and like I've never felt like I wanted to be compartmentalized. It's like when I put out like that tribute covers album of yours last year, people were like, oh, is that what you're doing now? I was like, no, it's just what I did.
That's not going to define the rest of your life, Jonah. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, sorry.
I was led to believe something different.
That's how I got you to sign off, buddy.
Well, I mean, that's also maybe a reason why I haven't put out as much music in the last 6 years, because I've also been trying to explore other things that I've been wanting to do. I'm not at liberty to talk about all these things, but I've got several things that I'm pitching and in development on. I wrote a movie script, which we're in the process of developing. I'm in the middle of pitching a TV show right now, which I wish I could talk about all these things, but they're just like, I have to keep them kind of under my vest until they actually, get greenlit. But I'm trying to expand myself in other creative ways and, do stuff that would amuse young Al Yankovic.
Well, that's a huge thing that I try to do with my career is like, what would, I always try to throw the ball back. Like what would the young version of me right now, what would they would think is cool and think is funny and think is neat? And it feels that you kind of like try to do the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's part of me is always going to be 12 years old, and I always try to, do things that would blow my younger self's mind.
Yes. I mean, like having a conversation with you would blow my 12-year-old mind. And it's a really, I feel very fortunate to be able to call you a pal, not a friend.
Oh, let's go there.
Yeah.
Most personal friend, I would say.
Yes, yeah. I have the shirt.
Yes.
But it's because it's funny because a lot of people will ask me when I put out the EP of your covers, like on Asian Man Records, like people kind of go like, it's like, whoa, what does Al think? I was like, he's fine with them. He likes them. It's fine. Like it's like, but there's always.
I've got a copy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. You did. The guy Mike Park, like a legendary Bay Area punk ska guy, Mike Park from Skank and Pickle and Bruce Lee Band. He like was so excited to be able because his his band was like opened up for you, I think, once in the early '90s or something like that. But there was a he was like, "Wow, I put out a record that I get to send to Weird Al," and it's like, and it's because someone tweeted at me to say to put out your record on vinyl, and that's how it happened. So it's a weird world.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. But you've had like, there's also like, I'm not the first person to ever kind of do a tribute to you. There was also the band, I think they're from Pleasanton, California, the Bay Area. They were called Your Mother, great punk band.
Yes, yeah.
But they did the like a 10-inch of like really spastic, crazy covers of your stuff.
And the cover of that was an exact parody of my first album cover, which was sort of like a faux Mad Magazine kind of collage of me in my bedroom surrounded by just, demented detritus, just weird stuff.
Yeah, and then their version
that
too.
was great.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Thank you. There's a lot. Who else? I think the Midget Men, I think, did a whole Dare to Be Stupid cover. I think they did the whole album, cover of the whole album. And there have been a couple compilation albums of people from Fump and the Dr. Demento Show that did their own versions, covers of my songs, some originals and some parodies. But yeah, I mean, that's all extremely flattering to have somebody cover your work and certainly in a loving way like that. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's funny because there was some of the reactions were like, why is this a thing? Like for my album, they were like, why is this a thing? I was like, because I felt like doing it. There was a very a thing back to like, kind of like trying to impress your 12-year-old self. It's be the middle of the Venn diagram of your interests.
Right.
Don't worry about anyone else.
But that's, I think, the nicest thing. I mean, you can do this at any point, but certainly at this point in my career, I'm just doing the stuff I feel like doing. I don't feel compelled to do anything that doesn't interest me or that I don't want to do. I can literally just do what I want to do, which is a nice freedom to have.
And did you feel like throughout your career there was sometimes maybe you would tackle a song kind of because you had an inkling that it would be a hit? Like, did you think that way in terms of your songs and your albums, or maybe you'd be piecing together an album and you would go like, there's still not like a big hooky hit on this one?
Yeah, I mean, most songs that I would take on were certifiable hits before I even got permission to do the parodies. But near the see, this is one of the problems of doing the albums, is because you get your hit and then the album's going to come out on a certain date, and I got 2 more songs to write. Like, what are the big hits right now? And sometimes you take a guess, and sometimes you guess correctly, and sometimes you don't. And the famous example that I always use is, I think this was for Polka Party, actually. Not the reason why that album tanked, but there's a parody on that one, was a parody of Ruthless People by Mick Jagger. It was from the movie of the same name. And the single had just come out, and I thought, oh, a Mick Jagger solo single, that's going to be a huge hit. And then I had my manager contact his people to get permission to do the parody. And Mick said yes. And then then his song kind of tanked. It did not do well. And I didn't have it in me to call back Mick Jagger and say, yeah, wish I could have done the parody, but yeah, you kind of didn't do that hot. But I did it anyway, and it was not a strong track on the album, but it's there.
Yes, and that it's so funny because it's like nowadays when I listen to your albums from the past couple albums, I'm so out of pop music that there was like Word Crimes. I was like that might go down as one of my favorite Al originals.
Really?
I had no idea. Like, it's like
that song you had not heard of?
No,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't. It's not like I actively do it. It's just that weirdo punk kid in me that I just kind of don't. I don't watch shows where that would be on. I don't listen to the radio stations that would be played on. So.
Well, Brian was saying, I don't know if you've heard his routine about how he would play the Weird Al songs for his kids and never expose them to the original material, so that when his kids in college, he'll hear like Michael Jackson going like, "That guy totally ripped off Weird Al. What is he thinking?"
If you were if and this is, and I don't mean this in an odd way, because you know how much I love the movie UHF. I think you and Jay did a fantastic job. If that movie had hit, and I don't mean to keep on asking you like speculative
No.
questions, but it's just like, as someone that's, also just doing stuff and trying to make stuff, and then you never, sometimes you hope that the thing will be the thing, and then it's another thing, and that takes off, and I think, like, did you have, what was, if it had hit UHF, what do you think yours and Jay's lives would have, like, would it have continued the same, or?
I had stars in my eyes. I thought that, before the movie came out, I mean, I was being pumped up so much by Orion. I mean, the test audiences were giving it scores through the roof. They were Orion Pictures was calling me their new Woody Allen, back when that was a good thing. But no, they thought, Al's a movie star now, and this was just the beginning of the journey. And I was literally figuring this out with Jay, going like, well, I'm still under contract. I guess every album that I put out from now on is going to be the soundtrack to my movie. This was a thought I actually had. And it did not turn out that way.
Wow. It's because I liked it. It's one of those things where it's like, it must have been such a gut punch, because there was so much care and thought put into it, and it's an incredibly like funny movie with amazing absurdism, but then it's a tight story, and it's just, I feel it's just a great comedy. It's like, and I've said this to you before, it's if SCTV got to make a movie.
That's high praise. I mean, I feel it's uneven. I'm proud of it, and Jay and I really didn't know what we were doing at the time, which maybe was good. I mean, it gave us a freedom to not know what the rules were. But I did a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking after the movie came out and bombed horribly in the box office, and I thought of thousands of things I would have done differently. And the plot was very cookie cutter. It was very generic, and I might have, if I had to do it over again, I might have been a little bit more experimental, or thinking outside of the box more in terms of actual story. There's a million different ways we could have gone with it. I'm glad that it's gone on to be beloved and have this cult status. But for the longest time, all I could think of before going to sleep at night was, why wasn't this a blockbuster? What could I have done to change my fate?
Yeah, yes. And like, I mean, had it been, I always wonder, like, what would it, like, it's like, would you and Jay have remained, and I know you guys have remained working together since, but like, it's like, do you think it would have been, it's a hit, what's the next movie? Like, did you even, like, were you already kind of starting to project, like,
oh, yeah,
what the plan was for that? And would it have been a parody, or would it have like been an original?
It would have been. We were thinking like a Holocaust movie, something very deeply serious. No, of course. I mean, it would just be all like comedies. I think I might have drawn up a treatment for the next movie, which went nowhere. I couldn't even tell you what it was about. But yeah, I mean, the plan was to continue on. At one point, I think the producer of the movie, before the movie came out, he was thinking like, we want to buy options on you. We want to get you under contract. And my manager was like, no, let's wait. This movie's going to be a huge hit. You're going to be fighting off the offers. Oh, well.
Yeah. It's, and like, is that, did you have that feeling? It's like, and I was surprised after that movie, even though the movie itself was like a bomb at the time. You showed a lot of, I think, range in it with like characters and playing a great, like, lovable straight man, anchoring the movie. Was there something, inside, and I'm saying this from a completely like you know, like selfish place in my head where I'm like I felt it did pretty good on that show. It seems like something would have came in and offer for something that I didn't have to make myself. Like, did you think that maybe there was the possibility of that, like maybe even just being a hired actor for a bit until you made
I was hoping. I mean, I was telling my agent at the time, like, I don't have to have my name above the title. I could just I just feel like saying somebody else's thing. Yeah, it's been a struggle. I mean, you know, ever since then to, you know, get any kind of involvement in, you know, features to this day. I mean, you know, I get offers every now and then. It's got to be appropriate, and I'm not going to do something I don't want to do. But yeah, that's it's been a continual challenge for me to try to find my place in that world.
And it's with, you know, when you went and did Ackerman's Comedy Bang Bang show, and you know you show up and stuff. What do you consider them cameos, or do you like not with a Bang Bang because you were a cast member, but like with, you know, you showed up on I think the Odd Couple, the version that Tom Lennon was doing, right. And it's like, do you consider those cameos, or do you consider those like just a bit part that you played as an actor?
What would the difference be?
I don't know. It's just like, but like. I sometimes when I'm in something, people it's like, I love your cameo in Better Things, and I go, I'm just playing a guy. It's not really, it's not like it's like, oh, Jonah Ray from Mystery Science Theater is playing the assistant director in this one scene.
Yeah, I don't know how to distinguish. I mean, by definition, anything that I'm in could be considered a cameo, I guess. Or does it have to be like less than 45 seconds, or like I don't know what the dictionary definition of a cameo would be, but I enjoy doing them.
Just to be completely honest, I have been paid $1,000 by the company Cameo to see how many times I can get you to say cameo. So thank you for that. This time, I need that money. Well, I wanna like wrap it up, but it's such a it's got to feel pretty good that, you know, all this groundwork that you laid throughout the years of your career, and to, like, it's got to feel pretty good to have that kind of the waves of people that, you know, were inspired by you, kind of roll forward into their own careers that you can, you know, also see and then kind of get to know, and it's got to feel pretty good, because it's like, you know, you being part of, like, you know, Portugal the Man, you know, this incredible new song that they did. Being like, you know, you played All Tomorrow's Parties in, you know, in England. Like, it's like the band Godspeed You Black Emperor, which is an incredible band, and I was like way into the band before that, 3 Mile Pilot. It's like they had you play, you know, and like I think you did Fun Fest one year as well. Yeah. Like, it's and
I checked with the Godspeed thing, and I thought for sure that I was booked in that festival as a goof, like, you know, as like an ironic thing, and they assured me, no, man, we love you. We want you in the festival.
Yeah, because you put on an insane spectacle of a show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you're playing next to Godspeed, you're playing, like in Fun Fest. I think, like, you know, trying to think of that year, like what other kind of crazy punk and hardcore bands were playing before you, and like on another stage nearby, and it's got to feel pretty incredible that the comedy community and the music community at all levels have embraced you, just because I do kind of consider you're a counterculture guy. You're an underground kind of like not like you're not underground, but like
you have an underground sense. Go ahead and say I'm punk.
You're punk. That's all I ever want to try and connect with things. But like, it's like you do have that, like, that thing that you do the thing you do, and you would do it no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's and I think, like, that's why I think a lot of, like, the indie comedy scene and the underground and punk scene, like, really respond to that and what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be established, to have a track record, to have done this for a while, because a lot of the people that I'm a fan of in the music world now are people that kind of grew up on my music, so to speak. I mean, and when I try to pitch my movie ideas or TV show ideas, I mean, I'm walking into a room of executives that, you know, had my records when they were 10 years old. You know, it's nice to be in that position. And, you know, I would imagine it's pretty tough to be starting out in the industry, especially these days. So it's nice to basically have a leg up and to have been able to, laid a lot of the groundwork early on, and be able to enter a room and have people already like you. So that's a nice place to be.
That's true. And was there any ever consideration throughout your entire career to have a Chris Gaines phase, like Garth Brooks?
That still may come. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. After this Portugal the Man thing, maybe I'll be just like indigenous people's anthems. We'll see.
Yes, yeah. He's just going around the world.
Yeah.
Limited release stuff. All the proceeds go to.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it was really nice talking to you again.
Yeah, man. Nice to talk to you.
Of course. I guess that is it. From Spin Magazine, this is Weird Al. I've been Jonah Rick. All right. Is that?
Are we good?
Daniel, is that good?
Woo!
Did we nail it? Yeah, we nailed it.
Party.
Yeah, I'll see you guys over at the standard. Which standard? You know.
You know.
You know which standard. Awesome. All right, cool.
I'm gone.
He still has it. Kinda.
But are we good? Are we good?
Oh no!
Ah!
What a dick, right? All right,
Okay.
cool. All right, good.
Bye.
All right, good. Good to see you. Give my love to the family.
Okay.